So I guess there's a lot we covered there, but let's tie in a couple of things. You were
Hmm.
talking about technology. You were talking about records. You were talking about how they're easy to understand.
Hmm.
What about the one that? What about the ones that were on the Voyagers, like Voyager 1, Voyager 2? I always
Yeah.
found that very fascinating.
It's funny you mentioned that because I've thought a lot about those things since I got back into actual LPs again, and I thought about the little pictograms that are imprinted on the album. That hopefully an advanced civilization will be able to look at that and say, this appears to be the implement that you read this data with. There's a pictogram that indicates that it spins, which you figure out anyway because it's round. So naturally, anything that round is going to spin.
I
Uh,
agree.
and there are pulses to indicate waveforms that are encoded in the medium. So I think that any reasonably advanced civilization, one that was clever enough to be in space to pick up the Voyager probes in the first place, they'd figure it out.
Yeah, I think I figured it out. But I mean, some of the things that I'm really interested in is that you got two naked figures, and one guy's like kind of waving a little bit, and
Hmm.
that's kind of odd because we don't do that. Like we don't just hang out naked and wave at each other unless you're on a secluded beach and there's a compound that where all those people
Well, if you want to
hang
if you
out.
want to show aliens what humans look like, you have to show them without any kind of clothing.
Yeah, I guess that's probably true.
And this is the typical human gesture of peace or greetings. It also would show them how the arm articulates and how the hand articulates. Because if both arms were down, it wouldn't be clear. Maybe arms move in a different direction, or maybe the hands can't open. So that's one way of getting that
That's a
idea.
pretty good thought. Yeah, that's a good thought. Well,
Because
why is it?
I have a whole book on this. I got it when I was a kid,
Yeah,
and I looked at the pictures. I never read it, and it's called Voices from Earth. And I think Sagan is one of the co-authors on it. And it's
sure.
not the whole story of, this was a very momentous thing. You're going to have a chance to send one package out to the cosmos. What are you going to put on it? This is your only chance. What's going to go
Right.
on it? So it was about all the deliberations about to show the male, to show the female, what were they doing, and all the other things that they included. And one of the most difficult things to decide was what music are you going to include that
Yeah,
represents the totality of humanity. Tough job.
really tough. So they did snippets of a lot of different ones because they couldn't make up their minds. And that in itself may be confusing because how does somebody know when one track stops and another track begins? But I guess it's going to be up to the aliens to understand that, the differences are so great that it obviously isn't one contiguous piece of music. But who
Yeah,
knows?
and it comes down to
There's only so much you can do, right?
there's only so much you can do, and without an interpreter, um, so even on Earth amongst human beings, different cultures, music to one culture is not interpreted as music to another. I mean,
Even
many sociological studies have been done to show this, where sometimes Western classical music is played for these islanders who really have had very limited contact with Westerners at all, and to them it is perceived as noise. It's not enjoyable or pleasant.
but in
So
my
it's not
own culture,
music.
I found that.
Yeah, music is clearly not a universal. There's a lot of acculturation required to appreciate your own culture's music.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think it's what you're exposed to early as well. I mean, there's a reason why three-chord rock resonates with me, and there's a reason that like three-chord country doesn't. I don't know
Mhm.
what it is, but I think it's because I was exposed to three-chord rock at an early age, and I grew up with it. If I had been born just 15 miles away, it might have been a different story. My parents may have listened to, more country music, and I may have been more amenable to those chords. But so it is what it is. Even though it's three chords with a logical minor, it's very much the same format. It's just the resonation of those frequencies doesn't um, excite my brain as much as the CF and G does. So
Well, there's the brain's reaction to hearing chords and notes in a particular arrangement, but then also you can't separate the cultural meaning that these different types of music have. For instance, even here in America, classical music is perceived by, I would venture to say, the majority of Americans as stuffy, clinical, and uninteresting to me.
They never listened to Shostakovich #8.
But it's because there's a cultural weight associated with that form of music that says, oh, this is for the elite, this is for the upper crust, which of course isn't true.
Not at all.
It's historically true.
Not at all.
But that hasn't been true since recorded music became available to everybody.
Yeah, I agree. There's no barriers to music now. It's everything is available for everyone, and it's amazing when I meet, I'll talk to somebody 20 years my younger, and they'll be like, how do you know that? I'm like, I have YouTube, like no. I've got Spotify, like I can listen to anything. It's not like, it's not just available to your generation, buddy. But
the perception there is that once you reach a certain age, that you no longer pay attention. That's when you're young. That's the stereotype.
That's partially true. However, when I hear something I like, I play the heck out of it. I mean, to the point where I almost memorize it, and it's kind of funny.
I call that chewing the juice out of the music.
Yeah, and then I'm like, and then it's like fruit stripe gum, and it just lost its flavor, and it has to go away for a while. And then every once in a while, you'll go back to the store and buy some fruit stripe, and you're like, yeah, I'll listen to that again. Mm-hmm. But it takes a while. But I play it to, when I was a DJ in college, so we had a heavy rotation. We had different, and that was the format. And some things we just played in heavy rotation because that's what you did. They wanted to sell albums. So,
yeah.
From jumping from one form of art to another, this painting behind me, I remember this is my very first acrylic on canvas painting that I did as an adult. Mm-hmm. And I remember doing it. I remember at one point I called you on the phone because I know that you're a very prolific artist. You paint, you draw, and you're really amazing at it. You always have been since I've met you. And I remember asking you a question. I remember asking you, like, how do I know when it's done?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's a question that I found every artist asks themselves. You might have a piece that you think, well, it looks good now, but it would look even better if I added this and this. But then eventually you run the risk of taking that too far, and you think, I've overdone it. I've killed the spirit of the thing by working it to death.
You've done this?
Sure. I think every artist has done it, and you look at it. It's less of an issue now in the digital age where it's easy to just go back, which is a wonderfully freeing thing. But if you're doing something like acrylic paint or any painting, and God forbid watercolor, which is the most unforgiving of all mediums, and which is why you have to have the patience of a saint to really be good at it, it's very easy to overwork a piece and ruin it, and you wished you had stopped 2 days ago. I think even the world's most accomplished artists wrestle with that question forever. I don't think it matters how long you've been making art. You always wonder, should I stop here?
I wish I knew who said it. It sounds like Picasso to me, but it could have been Dali. But I heard it said that no work of art is ever finished. Mm-hmm. It's merely abandoned.
Yeah, I think I've heard that quote. I don't know who said it. Yeah. So if you get a book of fine art full of paintings of the masters, and especially of recent masters of the 20th century, you look at the dates. When was this painting done? And it'll say, 1902, 1913, and then occasionally from the same artist you'll find a painting that says 1920 to 1925, because they worked on it. They put it aside, didn't touch it for years, and then came back and said, I know how to finish it. They do it.
Well, I know writers do that all the time.
Yeah, sometimes
why wouldn't painters
abandon it and you'll never come back to it. Other times, it'll be stewing in the back of your mind, and then one day it just hits you. You know, like when you're taking a shower. I know what to do with that now.
It's always in the shower too, when you can't do anything about it. But I think
Stuff
that's
in the world happened there.
but I think that's part of the process. It's part of being a creative person, I think, is allowing oneself to have the space to allow your mind to do things that you may not even be consciously aware of. I used to say to friends, they'd say like, "What are you doing this weekend?" You know, I don't know, and they'd say, "Well, you know, you don't have any plans?" I'm like, I know that I'm jealously guarding my unstructured time.
Right.
And they're like, what?
It's a great Calvin and Hobbes quote. There's never enough time to do all the nothing you want.
Yeah.
I love that quote because
it's a great quote.
That should be on my headstone. That's me in a nutshell. I'm very comfortable doing nothing. Yeah, but you said something just a minute ago before that I really resonated with.
Not the unstructured time thing?
Unstructured time. Yes, that was it. So an artistic person, a creative person wants to let things happen that they might not even be conscious of. So all creative people have experienced, well, not even creative. Well, yeah, I guess it is. Almost anything can be creative. The flow, you've experienced the flow, right? Time has no meaning. You think you've been working for 5 minutes and the person who's sharing the house with you says, when are you going to come to bed? You've been in there for 3 hours. You said you were coming to bed 2 hours ago. That's the flow. And when you're in the flow, you're not thinking anymore. You know, when people try to explain, well, what is a Zen moment? What is it really? How will I know when I experience it? The most common one that everybody has experienced is driving home from work. You do it every day. It's the same path day in, day out. And then one day you realize you got home, but you don't remember ever driving home. It just happened. That's the flow. Your brain was out doing all sorts of other things the whole time you were driving. And another part of your brain that you're not conscious of was taking care of business.
Yep.
And when you're really into it with art, that is the most magical thing that can ever happen to you. Because for me, when I look at a painting, more drawings that I've done, I'll look at it when I think I'm finished or I'm tired and I'm giving up, and I'll look at it and I'm like, who did that? Who made that? It wasn't me, quote unquote. I didn't take the conscious decisions to make that stroke and do that and do that. Who did that? So then it always brings me back to the mind-body problem, you know? It's the whole thing of how do you explain the physical matter of the mind, the chemicals and a little electricity thrown in. Consciousness arises from this physical matter. How does it happen? Well, it certainly is happening in art. These ephemeral things that can't be touched or seen are somehow coming through the physical organ of your hand onto the medium onto which you're making art. How does it happen? It's a great mystery, and I hope we never find out, because so many things about modern life are non-mysterious because we always want to know why things work, and we've done a fantastic job of nailing down almost everything that's important. And this is the creative process is one of those things that remains magical. And we can connect all the way back to the ancients. They talk about the muse.
Yes.
The muse left me. The muse came back. I found my muse in her. That's it. That's that spirit of creativity. It's the thing or the situation that allows that whatever it is to flow. Lightning in a bottle.
I like the fact that the ancients named them. Like they actually gave them personifications. And I love that because it can be fickle, you know, it can be so fickle. The other day, I remember we exchanged a text and I said, I feel like painting. You said, strike while it's hot. And it's true, because you can't just say at 5:15, darn it, I'm going to sit down and paint. And you can force yourself to sit down. You can put that crimson in front of you. You can put that brush in your hand. But if it's not there, man, you're wasting your time, you know, like it's just.
Some days you got it. Other days you don't. There are times when I feel the impulse every day. And then I won't feel it for 2 months.
William Gibson talked about the writing process at one point. A guy that wrote, all the cyberpunk stuff in the 80s. And he said, somebody said, what's it like to be a writer? How do you do, what's your day like? He said, well, I get up in the morning, I go to my, my laptop. Well, now it's a laptop. Back then it was a typewriter. And I try to write. And if I can write, then I stand there and I write for 2 or 3 hours. If I can't, then I go get the mail. I mean, it's not easy.
Carry water. Yeah. You can't force it. I mean,
to a degree, you can discipline yourself to do. I can do something. So, like, if I write something, and if it's my writing time and I can't write, I'll edit.
So I've taken classes from people who earn their living by drawing and painting, and when that's the thing that pays the rent, you have to work. So there are tips and tricks that you can use to kind of cajole your brain into that working mode. I think it's easier with visual art than it is with writing, because there are exercises you can do with your hand that will just kind of get you going. And this one instructor, his belief was that you get the hand, get the arm going, put it out there, shove it, grind into the paper. And just the act of making your hand do these motions is connected to the brain. And you're freeing up whatever those parts of the brain are that are typically engaged in making art. So it's kind of like you're priming the pump, you're jump starting it.
Well, I did have a writing professor who said, just start typing, just start doing it, or writing freehand, whatever you do. He said, eventually you'll get to whatever's on your mind. It might take you 10 pages of nonsense that you're going to have to throw out, but eventually you'll get there. So yeah, there are techniques. There's no doubt. And I've also read that, contrary to what I thought was logical before, I used to think that I had to be motivated in order to do something, but now it seems that research has shown that some real neurological research has been done to show that action is first and then motivation comes. So by setting a time and a date of the day in order to do these things, we trigger our minds subconsciously maybe to say, oh, it's time to be creative. So we can kind of coerce ourselves a little bit. We can't just hoard ourselves in a headlock and put it down, do this now, but we can kind of nudge ourselves gently in that direction, I think.
And I think that's the difference between, I agree with all that. That's the difference between somebody that, it's the way they make money, versus a hobbyist like me. Because if I don't feel like it, I don't have to.
I heard somebody say this isn't necessarily about art, but this is more about sports or some kind of physical discipline. I had a friend who was teaching me how to shoot pool, and he showed me how to make a bank shot. So I made the bank shot. I missed, I made it. I'm like, yay, let's celebrate. He's like, no, do it again. And I'm like, what? He's like, you only did it once. You missed 9 times. Now do it so that you make it 9 times and only miss once. And I'm like, what? He's like, he said, amateurs do it until they get it right. Professionals do it until they can't get it wrong. If you see this with golfers a lot, golfers, they'll play around, and they'll miss that one shot. And right afterwards, they'll go off onto the practice, tee, and they'll launch, they'll just start hitting balls because it's fresh in their mind. And they're like, I am never going to miss that shot again. I'm never going to miss that shot again. But again, they make their living at it. So, that's, they should do that.
The closest thing I can think of in art is one of the things I started to do just before the pandemic hit. So I only got a chance to go 3 times. I discovered that there was this school uptown that I could go to on Sunday afternoon, and for 2 hours, live model. You pay your $15, you get to draw a live model.
Nice.
And no instruction, no questions asked. Just we're giving you a space, a chair, and a model. Do what you want. So the routine is that you start out with 1 minute poses. Okay, 1 minute. There's no time for detail. Work fast. Don't think. That's no brain drawing. And then you move into 5 minutes. And time for a little more detail, but if you're going for the whole body, you still got to move pretty quick. And then you get into 10-minute poses where you can take your time, or 15 minutes where you can really start to get details of the face and whatnot. It's less gestural and it's more accuracy. And those are all warm-up kinds of things. But it's the same thing. It's like, again, change of paper, again, change of paper, again. It's like, hit it, hit it, hit it, hit it. And that it releases those parts of your brain. They're saying, you can't, oh, that's not good enough, that's not right, you suck. It drives those things out.
There's no time for that negative self-talk. Can't listen to that part of the brain. There's no time.
Correct.
Yeah, do it.
And I think that a lot because a lot of artists who are early on, less experienced, you get really wrapped up in accuracy.
Yeah.
And then the farther along you progress, at least for me, I can draw anything that you put in front of me, whatever it is, I can draw it, and I can draw it accurately. That's not the essence of art. That's draftsmanship. And I used to think that was what art was. It's not. So once you get to the point where you can draw anything that's sitting in front of you or on the horizon, it's no longer a challenge. And now you're looking for, well, what's the essence of the thing? And that's why I like drawing faces, because faces are infinitely challenging. They're always different. Everybody has something interesting about their face. The way that the nose might turn up on this one, or the arched eyebrow on that one, or how does the lip curl on this other one? There's thousands and thousands of variations on the eye, the nose, the mouth, the chin, the hair. Hair is a blast to draw because it's very freeform. And that's where art really hits its stride for me, because now it's your interpretation of the thing. You're no longer worried about, you don't want to make a photograph. That's what cameras are for. That's what your cell phone is for.
Yes.
The artist, for me to feel successful, have I added something that isn't there, that the camera can't capture? What did I bring to it? That's visual art for me.
Well, I mean, I heard a writer whom I use for inspiration a lot, Elizabeth Gilbert. She said, the problem with perfectionism and procrastination, she talks a lot about. And she'll say things like, yes, the one argument is, well, why should I do that? It's been done before. The Greeks wrote every possible plot line. They've done it all. It's been done. And she says, yes, it all has been done, but not by you.
That's right. And that's another thing, that if you work to make art in your life long enough, you eventually reach that point. And I really reached that point when I was doing that figure studio. I really started thinking about that question. And the fact that so many artists are online, you can photography, drawings, paintings, so many thousands and thousands, millions of talented people. They're doing fantastic work. And after a while, and I used to do photography a lot, and I got away from it because I really felt that. I'm like, there's absolutely nothing I have to say. Every shot that can be taken has been taken by somebody else in a better way than I've captured it. So I began to contemplate that with regards to drawing art. Everybody's done it. What am I adding? Or why do I feel compelled to do this? What's pushing me to do this? And I actually found a book that answered that question for me. It was all about the practice of people showing up and doing figure drawing. Why we do it? What's the point? What drives us? What motivates it? What are people's different reasons for doing so? And it's an imponderable, basically. It's just part of being human. This is what humans do. Humans feel a need to record and make. And the media that you use to record and make, it could be words on a page, it could be a sculpture in wood, it could be a pot, it could be a quilt. They're all the same thing.
Could be a YouTube channel.
Could be a YouTube channel. Absolutely. I mean, making videos, look at Ken Burns. He's an artist. What does he do? Makes documentaries.
That's one of the main things I'm trying to capture with this medium here, is that, I'm trying to capture moments, memories things that are dear to me that I think other people might be interested in and relate to. The human relationship, the laughter, the deep thoughts, oh, I'm not the only one that struggles with perfection and procrastination. Oh my gosh, I've never heard Elizabeth Gilbert said that. Wow, she's great. Maybe I'll try something. I had another writing professor. He said, here's what happens to young writers. Somebody writes something and it's pretty good, and their professor, their English teacher says, wow, that's really great. Now let me show you how Fitzgerald did it. And then they read something that is supremely better than they've ever written. And they go, well, forget that. I'm never going to be, I'm never going to be that good. So instead of inspiring them, they quash their dreams by example, and it's like
that's a bad instructor. That's a bad instructor.
Exactly. That's what he was
out there. They're certainly out there.
And a bad instructor.
I had an opportunity over the last 2 years to one of my art heroes, guy by the name of Steve Brodner. He has been in the business for decades. You've probably seen his work at some point. Didn't know his name. He's a caricaturist, but not in the goofy caricaturist sense. He will work for a lot of political magazines, so he'll draw a lot of politicians, current events, celebrities, things like that. But does it in a way that nobody else does it.
Right.
He's got that je ne sais quoi, and the thing that really appeals to you. You're like, man, I know that's his work. I'd recognize it anywhere. It's so good. I want to be like him. Well, and then I'm online and I see there's a school not too far away. And I'm looking through the course catalog. Maybe I'll take a painting course or something. Hey, you can take a course with Steve Brodner. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to this thing. And I did. And so you're talking about this horrible type of instructor who's like, that's good, but look at this. And makes you feel like, it's a bridge too far. What do I have? Why should I bother? But somebody who's a really good instructor, he's a master. He wants to share with you what he knows.
Yes.
He doesn't say, I'm really great. That's why you're taking my class.
Right.
He's like, let me tell you everything I know about how I make what I make. And you'll do it your own way. This is what works for me. You try it and see if it works for you. He's very encouraging and just very inspiring. And that's the kind of person you want to do work with, because art is so personal that when you make a piece of art, you want validation. It's like having your finger painting on the refrigerator.
Yeah.
You've poured your heart into it. There's no cynicism about it. There's no sarcasm. It's you. You're just laying it all out there. You're bare and exposed. And you want somebody to come along and say, that's very good. Now here's how we could make that even better. Try this. Here's another technique. Try this. And then pretty soon, before you know it, you're on a climb. But when you're young, you have to understand that kind of skill, it doesn't come overnight. It's like anything else in life. You want it to be instantaneous. You want it to be right now. Don't tell me I have to wait 30 years. You might have to.
One of the great things about having had the pottery studio was that we got to teach, and we got to teach kids a lot, which was great. But we got to teach full-grown adults who had never thrown a pot before on a wheel. So, it's amazing. And I remember I was teaching this, I guess he was about 14, a 14-year-old boy. And he's on the wheel and he's trying to get the clay centered on the wheel, right? So, that takes time, it's not like natural, now you just throw it on there, you center it and it's done. You don't even think about it. Like you're saying, it's a flow. But at first that's like a real obstacle. So he's like trying to do it. It's not centered. Everything's flying around. He's using too much force. The wheel's going too fast and all the tolerances are off. And he's like, he's getting really angry, and he's like, I suck at this. And I said, yeah, Brady, you do. And that's because you've been doing it for 15 seconds. Okay. Now here's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you a couple things and you're going to get better at it, but it's going to take a little bit of time. Just Okay, let's try this. Now put your hand here. Now put your hand here. Now make sure it's wet. Now take your sponge, and it's like, it's a, but what's really gratifying about it is that when you see that aha moment and they take that first piece off the wheel and it's like, and they're like, it's substantial. They made that and they're like, wow, and it's that moment is priceless. That moment
that's like your first hit, man. You get that feeling of accomplishment. Like, I want more of that. And that's one of the things that propels us forward. Is it's like, I'm not a golfer at all. I tried it a couple of times because friends goaded me into it a long time ago. But what I learned about it was that it's very much like art, in that every time you hit that ball, you're like, I can do it better next time. No, next time I hit it, it's going to be better than that. Next time it'll be better than that.
I tell my friends I'm not old enough to golf. They hate that.
I don't want to lose your audience here. I'm not going to say anything further.
That's why I don't get invited to go golfing.
I got opinions. That's all I'm going to say.
Before we run over it, when you were talking about doing the drafts and you're doing again, completely off topic, but that reminded me of a Bugs Bunny cartoon where he trades places with Elmer Fudd, and he's talking to a psychiatrist who thinks he's Elmer Fudd, and he's trying to convince him. And he's like, my name is Elmer J. Fudd, millionaire, own a mansion and a yacht. Yeah. Again, my name is Elmer J. Fudd. Again, and it just
Yes.
So, I don't know why that came. Well, I know why it came to mind, because I have a 12-year-old brain.
No, because we all watch those cartoons endlessly.
Yes.
And they're just burned forever. And what could be better than having committed classic Warner Brothers cartoons to memory?
I have a friend. We were talking about the classic, like angel on one shoulder, devil on the other shoulder kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And she said, I don't have an angel on a shoulder and a devil. I have Bugs Bunny on this shoulder. The wiseacre, yeah, what's up, Doc? He's gonna tease and annoy you. And then I have Yosemite Sam on the other shoulder. Like, wow, that sucks.
Yeah, there should be a third character there for a little impulse control.
I would hope so, but apparently not. But I can picture that now. So whenever I see the angel devil thing, I always think of that.